Hi everyone and welcome! Do you know what we use the pins for? To pin your fabric, of course, but not just that. Let me show you 10 tips and tricks. First, let me show you how to properly pin several layers of fabric together. If we pin straight into the fabric without any angle and then we incline the pin to make the tip come out of the fabric, the layers will move around and a lag will be created between the pieces of your pattern. Your sewing will lack precision. Have a look, the tracings do not overlay properly anymore. Of course, it's always a good idea to pin straight just to see if the tracings match properly and to check on both sides. But then firmly hold the layers together, take out your pin and pin it back at an angle. This way the layers you are pinning together will not move, everything will overlay properly. Let's check. Yes, everything is nicely aligned. Thanks to the tip of your pin, you can trace a straight line and create a perfect fold at the same time in your fabric. Position your pin where you wish to make your tracing or your fold and then start tracing firmly. Your fabric needs to be taut, not loose. Because of the pressure applied by the pin onto the fabric, the tip of the pin will automatically place itself between two threads of the grain line and form a clear and neat groove in the fabric. It is not difficult to make, it just takes a little bit of practice. So please do practice and beware, this works with woven fabrics only, no knits. When your hand sewing thread knots up, it's quite annoying indeed, but don't pull and don't stitch on, instead try this. First, I place my pin through the loop and give it a little pressure away from the knot. Then I will place my pin right under the knot and I push gently. Most of the time the thread unties itself smoothly. Now, to prevent your thread from making knots, I highly recommend beeswax, which I speak about more in my video, 10 favorite tools for sewing. The link is in the description box below. As you turn your garment inside out, the corners have to be perfectly turned as well, which is not always easy to do properly. Sometimes it's impossible to use the tip of your scissors to push the fabric out, so it's a great idea to use a pin instead. Use the tip of the pin to carefully extract the corners out, making sure not to tear the fabric nor to put a hole in it. I would like to show you how to properly pin tulle the fabric and large pieces of elastic, like this one that I normally use to shirr fabric. If you pin as you always do, and now we have learned to pin at an angle instead, your tulle fabric will sleep, your pins will fall, it's going to be a happy catastrophe. Therefore, I invite you to pin your tulle the same way you would baste it. That is, that you will pin in and out of your fabric 2 times, even 3 times with the same pin. The tulle is now well pinned and hold. Here you can see me do the same thing with my large piece of elastic, which I will sew to the sleeve. I am going to make beautiful smokes. Surely you have seen me use this technique in many tutorials. I use a pin to sew with the sewing machine. More specifically, I use a pin to guide my fabric under the presser foot of the machine. The pin is finer and more precise than my finger and allows me to keep in place different layers of fabric as they go under the presser foot. I can also hold in place slippery fabrics, folds or pleats, like this pleated tulle bustier that has a tendency to move around and shift. When we do hand sewing, a hem for instance, it's really nice and convenient to have a little bit of tension in your fabric. Of course you can use a heavy weight, but you can also pin the edge of your fabric if the material is not too delicate. You can pin it to your work table, to your ironing table, you can even pin it to your trousers. Here you can see me make a quick hem with large stitches. Here I am pinning golden stripes in order to braid them and make fancy straps. By the way, notice how angled the pins are to maintain the stripes. And finally, here in this Christmas tutorial, hence the snow, I pinned 3 rolls filled with wadding to make a lovely Christmas wreath. I even added a weight to make sure everything stays in place. And because Christmas is round the corner, I added the link to this tutorial in the description box below. Have a look at it, it's really fun and really easy. When I make patterns and for the life of me I can't find my tracing wheel nor my awl, I will quickly grab a pin and make use of it instead. The pin will allow us to pivot the pattern, for instance, and make modifications such as moving around darts. It can also be used as a tracing wheel when you wish to modify a line, transfer a marking, or even trace a whole pattern piece, but really in this case, let's try to find our tracing wheels. It will be much faster indeed. There are many ways you can use your pins, and before we go to the 10th idea in this list, I really invite you to share your own tips and tricks in the comments. Creating lace, appliques, creating straps, hanging fabric to shape it, making pleats with tulle like you see here on the screen, holding fabric, holding gathers, and on and on. Please pause this video a minute and share with all of us your own advices in the comments. Finally, let me share with you a mantra that I really enjoy and that I try to follow as much as possible. Faites confiance à vos épingles, faites confiance à vos épingles, which means trust your pins, trust your pins. When you have a fitting session for yourself or for a client, or when you are draping a dress form, be generous and use a lot of pins. Because when you will be alone with your garment, flat on your working table, you won't have any other choice than to indeed trust your pins. You will be tempted to change a line, modify a tracing, but remember, we are not necessarily symmetrical, we are not straight, and we are not standards. We have shapes and lines that are our own. So trust yourself and trust that you made a good job at pinning your fabric. You will save time, improve your precision, and really gain confidence. Voilà, dear friends, this is the end of this video. I wish you a happy sewing and don't forget, trust your pins, faites confiance à vos épingles. Bye bye, à bientôt.